So you got yourself a Harley Davidson and looking to customize it a little bit, and went out and bought yourself some handlebars. And upon attempts to install those handlebars, you realize that your controls and grips don't quite match up. Well, that's a good answer. I know why. You most likely bought European or Japanese handlebars, which are 7/8 in diameter, as opposed to Harley's 1-inch diameter handlebars. And that's a fairly easy fix. As you can see, these are original Harley controls, and it's a fairly easy fix. And there's actually a couple of solutions, not just one. But before we talk about that, let's revisit real quick those rear sets. I finally completed them, and I put the finishing touches on them. Mainly, the oval pad was adapted to this lever. If you watched my previous episodes, then you'll know that this was actually a shifter pedal, and the shifter mounted like so over there. Well, I made a little adapting bracket, nothing more than angle iron, and you can see I installed it on the back side of it instead of in the front. In the front would have probably folded over on itself at the first time I had to really step on the rear brake. So mounting that bracket on the rear of the lever would make sure the lever goes down before that tiny bracket has a chance to fold over on itself. And anyway, it looks great on there. It looks very retro, very vintage. Obviously I have no fluid in there yet. Before I get a chance to paint the bracket, the mounting bracket, that's starting, flesh rust is starting to take a hold of it. And same thing with the other side, the shifter side. Is, if you remember right, this was also not the correct pedal for this side. This was a brake pedal. I had to cut this off the lever and round it off and install a regular shifter peg. And you'll notice it's a little worn out. Even though I have brand new pegs, I like the worn in look. It looks like he's been on a motorcycle for a long while. But that's the shifter side. And with that, the rear sets are done. Now, let's talk about what we came here for. This was the original to the bike clutch lever. Obviously the cable is not in. I'm not going to install it until I repaint the frame, which will be probably the very next episode, because the tank and the seat and the exhaust are finally mounted on the bike. But this was an original. This was exactly the same part as that. You noticed I removed the black paint, and I also rounded off that corner right there, and this shoulder was no longer needed because I removed the buttons, so it's a little bit rounder. And what I have this spare installed on is actually the spacer required to install Harley controls, hand controls, onto the thinner diameter made for European bikes. And I'll tell you, the handlebars come in two flavors, come in two diameters. This right here are 7/8 of an inch. The Harley uses 1 inch, so it's 1/8 bigger in diameter than the European bikes or Japanese bikes. In order to use the Harley, in order to be able to clamp the Harley controls onto thinner diameter, you'll need to use some kind of spacer, and that's what you're looking at right here. The spacer can be as short as the clamp itself, or it can be as long as the handlebar, or even longer if you realize you cut too much of it. And it's just a straight tube that I purchased at Home Depot or Menards. It is a 1-inch diameter outside and 7/8 of an inch diameter on the inside, which will fit right over the 7/8 handlebar. This is actually what I cut out from my handlebar. I thought they were too long, and since I'm not using any buttons, I cut this much and I shifted everything inboards. Anyway, the 7/8 diameter handlebars have a very wide selection of grips, levers. So instead of using the Harley clamp, you have a choice of buying aftermarket or from other motorcycles levers that will fit, or use a spacer, cut it up to size and split it. You would have to split it halfway, so the clamping force would squeeze it in there, and that's about it. Other than fitting the levers, you'll notice I rounded off that annoying corner over there because I don't use buttons, and the reason I only use buttons on the handlebars are many actually. First, it simplifies the electric wiring on your bike. It makes it much easier to find a faulty wire if you're only chasing 5 of them instead of 20 wires. And for that reason, buttons on the handlebars they're not my friends. Also, the buttons on the handlebars, what they do, the functions they serve, are also irrelevant to me, because most likely you'll have turn signals over there, high beam, low beam switch, maybe a horn, and on this handlebar you most likely will have a starter switch button, an engine kill switch, also maybe a turn signals, which none of my bikes use turn signals. The starter switch will go right in there, and I'll have a high beam, low beam switch right over there. And this I might turn into a neutral light. I'm not sure yet, because I decided not to run a speedometer, but rather a odometer, or not an odometer, but a ref counter, tachometer. Anyway, you'll see the brake side lever is also very nicely rounded off, and I also stripped the paint off. That shoulder on this side is also gone. This is what the original one looked like, and you'll see the levers are very straight and not very sexy looking, not very pretty to look at. A lot of sharp corners and straight edges. And anyway, I think mine look much nicer, much prettier. You'll notice how much shorter they are because I shortened up the handlebars on both sides, and for that reason the lever needed to be a lot shorter. You'll notice this brake is actually set up, it's full of fluid in there, and I was able to reuse the original line, which I rerouted creatively to not just hide it, but also take up some of the extra length in it, because these handlebars are much shorter than the Harley Sportster's handlebars that came with this bike. So in order to take up some of the slack of the line, you have to get creative with rerouting. But you'll see the spacer right in there, and actually it's much easier to show it on the other side. You see it right at the end of the clamp. I cut these as short as the clamp because I wanted to use a metric type grips. These are Gran Turismo grips, and they're very comfortable because they bridge into your palm. And the mirror doesn't really pertain to our discussion, but it's mounted at the end of the bar, and it cuts your elbow out of your vision. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there. This is an old British English stadium mirror, and it's very well made, very cool looking, and it goes with the bike. So anyway, it's I think that's about all I can cover on this topic. But yeah, if you got some handlebars that don't quite fit your bike, don't despair. There's quite a few ways to remedy the problem. And if the handlebars are definitely a keeper, then there are workarounds to keep those handlebars on your bike and adapt them to your liking. But anyway, that's about it for today's video. In the next episode, we will be taking the motorcycle apart, and that'll be a good way to show you how the tank is mounted, how the seat is mounted, how the exhaust is mounted, and that'll be, I think, fairly educational. So stick around or come back for the next episode, and we'll see you soon. And with that, I'll leave you. Bye-bye.